Hello everyone and welcome to Callsign Charlie Models. Time for another unboxing. This one is of the Great Wall Hobby 132nd P-40B Pearl Harbor Curtiss Warhawk. This is the Christmas special edition from Great Wall Hobbies and is of their premium aviation series. So, top box art, of course, looks wonderful. Nice photo top finish to it, and it shows a couple shooting down a couple Kates, it looks like. So, and then Pearl Harbor in the background. So some very nice artwork on the front. Going off to the side, alright, so we have one of the P-40s from the 19th Pursuit Squadron, 18th Pursuit Group of 1941. Some very lovely detail right there. And then going around to the other side, you have two different callouts. You have the 47th Pursuit Squadron, 15th Pursuit Group, 2nd Lieutenant George Schwartz Welch of 7 December 1941. And then you have the P-47B from the 47th Pursuit Group, or Pursuit Squadron, 15th Pursuit Group, 2nd Lieutenant Kenneth Marler Taylor Halal. Sorry if I butchered that Hawaiian name, but... And then that is also from 7 December 1941. So getting this flipped around, we'll open up the box, we'll take a look at what's inside, and it is still taped shut. So this is literally the first time I've seen this kit. So get that. You open up the box and you have a lot of plastic in here. We'll get everything set aside and then we'll start going through everything. Alright, so we'll start going off with the instructions first. Some nice booklet form, nice photo paper on the top, and a nice copy of the box art for the front of the instructions. And then opening it up, you have a full page sprue call out, so you can tape that up and use that for later use. Then starting off with the kit, we're starting with our seat belts right here, getting all those done and then attaching those to your seat. And then you're moving on to your side framework for your cockpit and your instrument panel, and some more work to your frame work for your cockpit tub. And then continue on with some more frame, getting the frames attached to the front and rear bulkheads, and also your instrument panel, getting all that attached. Then you're working on some detail parts on the interior of the fuselage, getting all those on. Looks like your fuel tank and a few other detail parts in there. Adding in your rear fuselage or rear bulkhead to your fuselage, and then a nice little photo on how that's supposed to look after it's all done. And then adding more bulkheads and detail to the fuselage, getting all that done, and another photo of how it's all supposed to look after it's done. Then adding more detail parts to the fuselage, and then you get everything buttoned up and closed together, and then adding a couple more panels to the fuselage, and then moving right along. Just repeat for the other side, and then you're getting on your horizontal stabilizers and your elevators right along here, and they do have some trim tabs as a separate piece, so you'll be able to position those. And then you're adding your vertical stabilizer to there, and you have a small little piece to add to the one of the vertical stabilizers. Then continue on, you're moving on with your rudder, getting that on, and again it has a trim tab, and it also has the control arms for your rudder. So that's going to be a very nice detail. It looks like the trim tab adjustment is in photo etch, so that's nice. And then you're moving on to your wings, adding your landing gear wells, getting all those done, and then you're buttoning up your wings, putting on the back walls of your flaps, and then your wings are all done with that. Then you're adding in your guns, getting all your guns, your ailerons, and all that, and adding some wiring detail to the wings to go into the cockpit. It looks like your control stick is going to be on the wing right here. Alright, and then adding in some photo etch detail for your flap wells right in there. That's going to be very, very nice when that's all done and nice and detailed in there. So that way you won't need to purchase any Edward photo etch for that. That's going to be real nice. And then continue on your, looks like your speed brakes right here. Adding those in, you have the option of open or closed. And then adding some more detail parts to that. Then moving on to your flaps, you got some more photo etch detail parts to add on to that, and then you're putting your flaps in. For the closed position is one step, and then for the other step you have the open position. Then you're adding all that, you're closing your top fuselage along with your wing, and then adding in your wing roots and getting all that done. You're putting in your pilot seat along here. Then you're adding in some more tubing to go along the bottom of the fuselage. Very nice detail in there. Then you're adding some more photo etch to go in here. It looks like this is going to be the back end of the engine bay. And then you're adding this bottom belly spine along here that's going to cover up all that fine tubing that you just put in. So I don't know if you'd want to paint that, or if you want to, you could cut off one of these panels right here and have that opened up so you can see. Then moving on, we got our wheels. Getting those all done. Those are rubber type wheels, your landing gear struts, and some tubing for your brake lines. Very nice detail in there. And then you just repeat for the other side, and you also have the option for the landing gear up position as well. And then you're getting your landing gear attached either up or down, and then your tail wheel again up or down, and then as everything looks. Nice detail on that. And then we're starting our engine, getting our engine done. So it doesn't look like it actually has an engine, just looks like it has the engine cowl and then exhaust. So if you would like to open this up, you're going to need to buy an aftermarket engine. So getting all the engine cowls closed up, getting that all done, and then moving right along. Actually, no, I'm sorry, it does come with an engine. So you have the option, a basic option of just doing it all closed up right here. So that's nice. And then they have it where you have an engine to do. So moving right along with the engine, it looks like a very nicely detailed engine with all the detail parts, your rocker covers and all that, and all your wiring and all that. So continue on. There's a lot of detail to this engine. Moving right along, you're adding your frame to your engine, adding some more hosing, adding all that. That's looking gorgeous on the detail for that engine. Then you're adding your firewall to your engine, adding more wiring and all that, and then adding more detail to the engine, more detail, and then you have a stand for your engine, which is nice. And then let's see, a magnet to attach, so you can do it separate. That is a super nice detail. I really like that. So you can have it interchangeable with the magnet. That is really, really nice. I'm really happy with that, and that is the first I've seen that. And just interchange it, that's pretty awesome. So get all that done. Then you have your propeller right here, and then moving right along, you have your canopy and all that. And it does look like it comes with a mask for this kit. And then continue on, you have just a fuel tank, and then you have a pilot right along here. So far this is looking very nice. And the interchangeable engine and engine cowl is, I mean, that's absolutely amazing. So this color call out, right, is a whole poster right here. This is massive, and I'm hoping, let me zoom out some so you can see. That's as far out as I can zoom on my camera, and that's how big that is right there. So it has all your your stencil decals right in here, top and bottom. Then you flip it around to the other side, and then you have your 3 color callouts along here. So top is your Second Lieutenant Kenneth Marlar Taylor Halaya, and then you have your George Schwartz Welch, Second Lieutenant, and then on the bottom you have just the basic Pursuit Squadron one as well. So I don't see much difference between the 3, just mainly the fuselage numbers and the tail numbers on here. Actually, the tail numbers are the same for these 2, but different for this one right down here. So really nice detail. I'm really keen on having the engine being able to be swapped out. That is a gorgeous option to have, an amazing option to have for this kit. So moving right along. Alright, so it comes with a nice playing card right here. Not much to it, it's just it has all the color markings that you have on the back, and then a nice card, like postcard type deal on here. So that's a nice little extra bonus. And then here you have your masks, which do appear to be laser cut, so you don't need to worry about cutting those out. So very nice, and they are all numbered, so there's no question about which one goes where. Your photo etch is very thin photo etch, very nice. You do have your fold lines here, so you will be able to tell where you need to fold it. Some nice grading or grills for your engines and exhaust, so some very nice detail. Super thin photo etch on there as well, so that's also very nice. And then the decals designed by Galaxy Model. I've seen a few of Galaxy Model's figures. I've never worked with their decals before, so I do not know how their decals are, but the decals do look very nice. Carrier film is right on the edge of the actual lettering, so you won't have a lot of silvering if there's any silvering there, and very nice. The colors all look correct as far as I can tell, and some nice stencil decals along the bottom here. Alright, so this sprue is a double sprue, so we'll just go through one of these, get you zoomed in. Alright, so on the detail on this, nice detail on this firewall, some nice raised rivets on here. The engine blocks also do look very nice. Some nice bolt detail on there, along with the back of your spinner, some very nice detail, and your cabling and your tubing all look very nice. This piece, some nice back end for the vents, and you're going to be putting your photo etch on these vents as well. So some very nice detail on there. And the guns are hollowed out on the very tip, so that is again also another bonus. Alright, so next sprue we have our pilot figure. Basic injection molded pilot, not much detail to it. The face does look decent on there. So then you have your seat cushion for if you have the pilot or without his parachute, basically. So some decent detail on that. And then you have your tires right here, some nice detail on the tires, even some sidewall lettering on the edge of the tire. So very nice detail for that. There's only one of these sprues, and then the brake cables are very nicely molded and very thin connection points, so you're not going to have huge sprue gates on when you cut these off. Alright, so your clear parts come in a separate box, very nicely protected and very well packed, and these do look absolutely crystal clear. These are some holes in here, so I'm assuming those are supposed to be there, but again, some very nice clear parts. The rear canopy, there is I think that is actually supposed to be, yep, that is a frame line right there. So they worked out the seam line or the mold right in the middle, so that works out perfectly. Again, super clear and very nicely packaged, so you don't have to worry about it getting scratched up. Alright, and this looks like cabling detail for your engines, and also these are the cables or piping that goes down the bottom of the belly of the fuselage that you are going to be covering up with that one belly panel. So again, some very nice detail on there, very fine tubing. The connection points are all very small, so you're not going to have an issue with sanding off any of those areas. Alright, so we have the fuselage here, and the detail, the rivet detail and panel line detail look absolutely amazing. Superb detail all along here, some raised rivets along the inside of here, so some very nice detail. And then you're going to be having your wing roots that connect in here, so that's going to be nice, and that's going to help eliminate that that gap that's in between of your wings and your fuselage. Very nice. And then again, very nice recessed rivet detail on these flaps. And again, just repeating it on the other side is a mirror image, and then reverse on the other side. Again, some very nice, these are actually raised rivets on the inside of the flaps along here. You do have a couple ejector pin marks here, but that is for your up position, so this part is going to be actually inside, so you're not going to be able to see any of it. And then on the down position, they do not have any ejector pin marks on the down position flaps, so it's very nice detail on that. Now for the interior of the fuselage, you do have a few ejector pin marks along in here, but I'm pretty sure that that framing that you do along at the very beginning of the build is going to cover all those up, so that's not going to be an issue. And then you do have a couple ejector pin marks in here, but this is all going to be covered up either by these framing or actually having the fuselage closed up, so no issue there. You do have a couple hatches here that you might have the option to have opened up, and you're not going to have any ejection pin marks there. So judging by where this hatch is on here, and then over on this side, looks like this is a connection point. This is across from that point, and nope, you will not see any of the ejection pin marks. So some very nice placement of the ejection pin marks. Alright, so moving on to the engine parts. Again, some beautiful recessed panel line and rivet detail all along this cowl, and having that all done along with your wing roots right in here, some very nice curvature into that. That's going to work beautifully along there. And then your cowl flaps along here, some nice recessed rivets along there. You have the option of having open or closed. And then you have your fuel tank or oil tank, one of the two right here is in two pieces. And then just moving right along, more fuselage detail. Your propellers look very nice, and all that. So continue on, and then on the inside for here, you're not going to see any of it because it's all closed up, so don't worry about that part. And then yeah, that's it for that. Alright, so now we're moving on to the wings. Again, don't worry about these injection pin marks because you're not going to be able to see them at all. The points where you would be able to see along the upper points of the flap wells, they are completely bare. And also they do have some nice little indentation points for the photo etch to go in while you're doing that. So some very nice detail on that. And then moving right along on the other side, absolutely Gorgeous rivet detail all along, and panel line detail all along here. And you can see the cockpit floor has your raised rivets, the spine that goes down the middle, some very amazing rivet and bolt detail in there. It's just, that is absolutely amazing. And the same thing for the underside as well, that going down the spine, this very nice raised rivet and bolt detail all along in there. So that is very impressive on how they did that. And the fuel tanks, right? So they got the fuel tank right here, and you have this spine that goes all along the center of it, and then the other side is flush, so that will work on for your benefit on your seam lines for the fuel tank. Alright, and then moving right along, we got our, looks like our flap detail. This looks like the belly spine that's going to go across here, and then your interior of your landing gear wells, and they do have some nice like fabric surface detail in here as well. So, and then coming along again, some nice fabric detail all along in here on your rudder or aileron, or sorry, elevators all along here, and then a canvas bag for your tail hook again, and no ejection pin marks on the inside of the doors for your tail hook or tail wheel. Alright, again, nice fabric detail on the rudder, and then moving on to your vertical and horizontal stabilizer, some nice recessed panel lines and rivets all along in there. Alright, so moving on, this is going to be your cockpit detail and the framing. Again, some nice bolt detail on there, and then moving right along, some nice switch detail on this panel right here, and then the rear bulkhead, and moving right along. Your instrument panel does look very nice. I think there might be some decals to go onto here that will make that pop. And then your seat, pretty basic, but these seats in real life didn't have much detail to them at all. And then moving right along, continuing on with all the detail on this kit. Your landing gear struts, you do have the option between down and up right here. Just to be careful on which one you choose. One is obviously shorter than the other. Alright, so this is actually your engine sprue. I don't know what the what it was on the other sprue that I was saying that was the engine, but that is obviously not it. So you have some very nice, the engine block and cylinder heads all look very nice in here, and then moving right along, all the other detail that you're going to be adding to this engine. I think when I build this, I'm going to do this separate on the stand, and then I'm going to have the cowl glued into place, even though you have the option of having it interchangeable. Again, it's a moving part, and I'm not a fan of moving parts. So again, this engine detail on here does look very nice, and this is going to be a very nice addition to the model, and this is a kit inside itself right here. So alright, so your exhaust stacks, you do have two sprues of these, and they do look very nice. They are hollowed out on the very end. They do have a mold seam down the middle right along here, so those will have to be trimmed off, or it might actually be part of how the exhaust actually was. So I'll have to do some research on that and see if that seam needs to be shaved off. But they are hollowed out for the most part. A good amount, a decent amount back. I don't know if you can see how far back they are, but they do give that hollowed out impression. Okay, Okay, we have another sprue of the cabling and wires, some very fine molding along here, some very thin, so you're going to want to be very careful when you're cutting these off of the sprue. But again, some very nice detail on these. Alright, and this is the last bag. Sure, rubber tires. So again, I'm not a huge fan of rubber tires, so what I might end up doing is I might try to find some resin wheels for this. The tread on here just looks really basic. No writing on the sidewall, and I only saw one tire, one tire in that kit. So yeah, I'm gonna look into getting some aftermarket resin wheels for this kit. Alright, so that ends this unboxing of the P-40B Pearl Harbor from Great Wall Hobbies, and all I can say is this looks absolutely amazing. The detail on it, the panel line, the rivet detail, all looks absolutely amazing. The fine wiring and tubing that go into this kit, and also the actual photo etch for the flap wells and the flaps, all look amazing. And then let's get into that engine. Holy crap, that engine looks like it's going to be an absolutely amazing build and more detail and all that. And then on top of that, you have the fact that it has a magnet that you can put in, and you can change it in or out with closed cowling. So I think that's an amazing touch to this kit. The detail on it looks absolutely amazing. So for me, the only like aftermarket that I think I'm going to get for this maybe if there's a Quinta Studios 3D printed decal set for the cockpit, just because I think those look a lot better than what I could do painted. That's just my opinion for me, and that's what I like. And then some resin wheels, and that is because I don't like rubber wheels. So, and then after that, that's it. That's the only aftermarket I think I'm going to get for this kit. And then yeah, so the one thing I have that's a negative, and this is me being extremely nitpicky and has absolutely no weight to the model at all, is I hate when manufacturers staple back shut. I would rather have them heat sealed and closed that way. Yeah, the staples bug me. But that, like I said, is being extremely nitpicky. All the ejector pin marks were placed in places where you're not going to see them at all, so that's not going to be an issue. The rivet, like I said before, the rivet and panel line detail is absolutely amazing. The guns, everything that needs to have hollow points is hollowed out. So I am extremely excited to build this kit now after looking at it. My unboxing pre-build rating of this kit is by far the highest I've done yet, and that is a 9.5 for the pre-build. I mean, I'm flabbergasted about all the detail on here. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or hit that bell button for reminders of when I post new content. And until next time, have a great day and stay frosty.